On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
In this moment, your imagination will only be limited by your confidence. So you need someone to lend you confidence in that moment, because I guarantee you're better than you think you are. You just need someone to remind you. Well, I took out a line of credit to build a location, and then it wasn't working as well. And I was like, well, I just need more time to figure it out. Put more money in. And it was 1:37 in the morning. It was a Wednesday. I was wide awake, sweating, staring up at the ceiling fan over our bed, going, holy, you know what? If only everyone knew how screwed we are.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast, coming back to you here today. I've always got special guests, but this one I've been looking forward to. I look forward to a lot of them, though. I mean, I say that sometimes. I'm like, but Tim, I have been looking forward to this conversation. We've got Tim, Calise here on the King stage. I am just so excited. Tim, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it as well.
You know, you have an interesting background, and I want you to tell us about that, but tell us what kind of business that you have first, Tim.
Yeah, so I run a consulting and coaching business right now, and that sounds like everybody else, but effectively where I have found my niche is over the last 2 decades of raising capital and selling businesses and making money and losing money and probably, losing sleep and all the other things. I have found that I have been called to being a co-collaborator or a collaboration partner with entrepreneurs that are looking to grow. So my niche is I am like the number 2 guy that when you're laying in bed at night going, God, I really wish I could talk to someone who I'm not worried about being foolish in front of, who's been there, done some of these things, to give me insights. That's the guy I want to be. And so I welcome to share hopefully what I can with the community today.
I have to drop this soon and quick because you know marketing like I do, but you've worked with some names. I have. Are you able to share name drop here on us so that the listeners know what kind of caliber person that they're talking to here?
Sure. So I'll go with the one that most people know most recently. I was the number 2 and member of the executive team over at Gym Launch alongside Alex and Leila Hormozi, a business that we grew from 0 to being sold almost 2 years ago now to a private equity firm for a high 8-figure number for a small majority stake in. But even before that, I've had the great chance to either work with or work alongside 2 billionaires. And so I take that both for the name drop piece because you gave me permission, but also because it's given me insights throughout my career into kind of the mindsets, the manifestations of some of these folks and seeing how they do what they do. I believe in kind of this idea of leveling the field, which is bringing the knowledge and concepts of those that are super successful that we kind of look at and try to model and bring those down to folks that might be earlier in the journey or just starting and can learn from those things.
Yeah, I love every part of what you're saying. I think that that's why you're here on the show, because it's in essence what the show does as well. You're probably going to be able to give us some pretty unique insights, though, based on those 3 kind of examples of experience that you have. I'm sure you've got plenty of other that you'll be able to pull from here today as well. You've kind of got a unique perspective here because as an entrepreneur, as a driver, as a pusher, you've kind of, like you said, taken this niche into this number 2, which a lot of entrepreneurs are like, I don't want to be number 2, I want to be number 1. So talk to us about that first. Why is that important to not only for an entrepreneur to have a number 2, but then give us the personal part of it. Like why does that make sense for you?
Yeah, so I think it's critically important because entrepreneurial isolation and the kind of and those that have been in this seat know exactly what I'm talking about when I say this. That time where you look in the mirror and go, holy, you know what? I am like frozen in my feet, not knowing what I should do next, is the time when you want clarity and confidence. And so I believe that as a number 2, which sits kind of as a right-hand man, woman to the number 1, different than a COO, and we can talk about those differences, but it's truly a trusted collaborative partner, so that the number 1 becomes the best he or she can be. But from my perspective, growing up, I always knew I wanted to be kind of in the investment community in general. That was the environment that I grew up in. But very differently from some of the other people I got to meet, and the kind of sense I got in the room was, we use these terms like, you're entering the Coliseum, it's the fight, all of those types of things. And in my core, I always skewed a little bit more to the kind of the emotional side, like the softer side of that, which was I actually, not everything has to be a battle. Not everything is a I win, you lose kind of dynamic.
Sure.
And so I wanted to figure out how could I both kind of plot a course for myself, learn some things, earn my way in, but then be able to take that and do it in a collaborative way. We talked about Alex a moment ago. Alex is the type of guy who can sit in a room by himself and come up with these amazing concepts. I process out loud. This is kind of much more my jam. And so doing things alone was just never kind of how I wanted to do things. Sure. And I like seeing, if you go to my website, the headline says, I help founders' dreams come true. And for some reason, that has been a theme for me for the last 20 years or so, where I don't want to be the guy in lights. I want to be the guy behind the guy. And I just love watching somebody else be able to meet those high expectations and high standards that they've set for themselves.
Yeah, I think it's actually an incredible show of self-awareness and skill set. So I actually want the listener to kind of pay attention to what I'm about to say. I want them to really pay attention to the show, but like just for a half second, what Tim is saying, I think, is just this extreme, like you have the skill sets, you have the experience, you have the knowledge to be able to go crush pretty much anything that you wanted to. But for you to be able to hone in on like, this is who I'm made to be, or my calling, as you say, kind of before we hit the recording button, it's like, okay, no, like this is my lane. I know where to go. I know that I serve best here. And I think that message can be applied to all the listeners. Like if you just can know what you're made for, then you can just run really hard and you don't have to worry about the rest. No, there's always, the rest needs to still be taken care of. Sure. But ideally that's for somebody else on this collaborative team, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other part I was thinking about, like, what would my headline be for, a conversation like this? And the theme I've come up with is some version of, I believe the way people build businesses is wrong. They do it wrong. So if I have a point of view which is different than the kind of the populace, if you will, I believe I can sit in that number 2 seat and both give you the strategy, I can give you the reason, I can give you the experience, I can give you the insights, and say, here is how I perceive the future to be best achieved. You as the number 1 can say, does that fit me? Is that where I want to go? But I really do enjoy, and I do feel it. I'm a call to taking this before we got on, the last kind of 20 plus years of blood, sweat, and tears, bumps, bruises, and try to help somebody else avoid some of those foreseeable mistakes. Because I just see it time and time again. And the most common version of this is, I'm going to sacrifice everything for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow when I sell my business.
Right. Which potentially never even happens. 98%
of the time never happens. 95+% of the time doesn't happen to the extent that you feel makes it worth it for that sacrifice. So if that kind of that road is already lined with bodies, what is it that we're missing and how can we do it differently?
Yeah, I mean that headline right there is we grabbed some attention with that one. Okay, well, let's talk for a half second. You mentioned number 2, maybe a strategic number 2 like you. Different than a COO. Help us understand. Yeah.
So most people think I need to build out my C-suite, but if my kind of focus is 500,000 to 3 million a year in revenue, so kind of already started but not quite blown up yet.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that business is not mature enough to build out someone of that caliber in a lot of ways. So at that point, you're still you're in the go-to-market stage. You're in the finding product market fit. I think in this day and age, a lot of people are focused on finding specialists, but I believe in my heart that actually misses a lot of the point early on, because you can optimize in one vertical, if you will, without taking in consideration the others. You're going to have a really hard time. So my part is I work for the CEO or the founder. I don't work for the company. And that is really important.
Interesting.
Because if you have ever found yourself in a situation like, I need to work through this, but I can't go to my team because, as you've probably all heard, the team needs guidance, they need clarity, they need confidence, just like we do, but we can't always think out loud, right? Yeah. So this kind of happens behind closed doors. Let's figure it out. And then I also help build the strategy so that you can go to the team with a clear, concise, confident answer, and that they can fall in line behind you.
Yeah.
And so this kind of figuring it out stage is one that I believe has to happen in a way that is confident both for you as the number one to be able to disclose, like, I have no idea what the heck I'm doing here. I have no idea what to do. You wouldn't go to your team and say, we're directionless, guys. It just won't happen, right?
Yeah.
But we can work through a lot of those things. And the reason why that's also important for someone like myself is I actually have gone with the founder to the next opportunity. So we've transitioned businesses before, and I've been part of the deal.
Yeah.
Like, I have to come along and I work for him or her rather than the company.
Yeah, makes sense. It's actually, there's a lot of parallel here, and I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about this after the show and as our relationship unfolds, but a lot of the same language, the isolation and having that place for a CEO to be able to go to, is why Gathering the Kings exists. Yep. Now, different solution. You're talking about a specific relationship, one-on-one, strategic, and all that, and Gathering the Kings is more community-based, but still the same kind of shakes it all down. But you're 100% right. Most entrepreneurs are in a place. I was just thinking about this because I'm having a video made. And it's like, man, that isolation gets real. Depression, ADHD, like, unfortunately, sometimes suicide. Like, it is a tough road to be an entrepreneur, and then even tougher sometimes to find other people, a number two or a community that actually want to support you. And it's not just a big conference, you know? Yeah. Like, there's a difference between what you're talking about, having like one-on-one, strategic, like, this is who I go to, or a group for that matter. That's different than going to a business conference. That's not really the release that we're talking about here. Do you want to explain even just a little bit further, a little bit more on the emotional piece of that isolation?
Yeah, so I think there's two pieces that would come out for me on that. So the first is, a lot of the hang-ups that we have are between our ears, right? So you can go to a conference and you can learn tactics and you can learn all, new information. I don't think any of us are short on information right now. That's right. What we are short on is insights. And so the first is like, let's work through, kind of whether they be, behavioral traits, beliefs, whatever it might be that are holding you back. That's one. But I can do it, and we do it in the form of insights. Just because it worked for someone else or it worked at a different point in time does not mean that it's right for you. Yeah. So the difference between knowledge and insights are application and fit. Yeah. Right. And we've all been here, right? You watch a YouTube video for someone who's a little further ahead, and then you go and try to do it, and it's like, well, yeah, he made $1 billion doing it, and I'm at 500,000. It's like, yeah, hire a team of 50. It's the same thing that I hear all the time, right? So, you have to find the thing that is right for you in the context, in the moment, and that really does take kind of structured thinking and insights based on, a number of different factors.
Yeah, it actually makes me think of a video that Alex put out not too long ago about, people focusing on the wrong part of the journey. They see the billionaire and that he has this long morning routine and works out at 9 a.m. and, doesn't get started until 3 and only has one meeting a day or whatever the scenario is. Yeah. And it's like, well, that part of his journey isn't what you should be emulating. It's 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's the come up, as he said. So give us some of the practicals that you're working through with your clients, maybe. Again, that 500,000 to 3 million is a good chunk of most businesses out there. It's probably who's listening right now. So what are some of the things that you're working through that they, in that come up, that they should be implementing or having good insights on?
Yeah, so I run what I call the Calise clarity process, which is basically capture, acknowledge, learn.
Got a little thumbs
there we
up
go.
there.
I got a thumb up. So capture, acknowledge, learn, implement, systematize, and execute. And so the reason why this is important is because the first step is diagnostic.
Okay. How
often do we take action? You wouldn't walk into an emergency room and nobody look at you, ask you any questions and go, all right, we're going to the ER. We're it's surgery time.
Right.
You'd go, whoa, you don't even know what's wrong with me. So we diagnose first, which is like, where are we? Yeah. Then we look at where we're going and we reverse engineer the process backwards. And so the primary kind of levers that we have, I believe product is the only thing that matters in that $500,000 to $3 million rate, is what products do we have and how do we use them to profitably acquire new clients. and hold on to the ones that we have. So that's where I play mostly, which is the product matters more than anything else. A lot of people try to go to marketing and advertising and things like that. But I work primarily in service businesses, especially ones with recurring revenue. So subscriptions, memberships, things like that, where we make a single sale to get the customer, not the customer to get the sale.
Right.
And then we take that relationship and we build upon it to drive LTV, lifetime value. It's very, it's simple, not easy, but there are frameworks that that we go through to make sure that we can pinpoint those highest leverage opportunities.
Yeah. Talk to us for a half second here, because you're spot on with, some of the value here on product or the service rather. Yeah. Basically, if you're selling crap, it doesn't really matter how great your marketing is. You'll sell a bunch. You won't be around for very long. And so you might have a flash, you might make some quick money, but it won't be a real business. And so I'm hearing you. Okay, cool. What do you have for the listener in that, as far as to kind of reshape their mind if they are on the marketing sales side? I mean, you're talking to a marketing sales guy, from like 20 plus years. The problem is always sales, to guys like us. Yep. But the value of the product is something that I think a lot of people are catching on to. Like they're paying attention more to this. Okay, like maybe it actually has to be really good. It doesn't have to be perfect. There's going to be version 2 and a version 3 and a version 4. But where is the balance here, and not being so focused over here and selling crap, but not having it to be perfect either? Yeah.
So if you are in this kind of range and you feel stuck, or you feel like, and I use the phrase, which is common, product market fit. Product market fit means the thing you're offering fits the needs and desires and aspirations of the person you're talking to. Yeah. Very simple. The problem that I see most people is, or the thing that holds them back, is early on, they try to create the perfect product in a vacuum, and then they go and try to find the audience that resonates with the thing they built.
Got it.
So I'm going to give you 2 action items here. Number 1, if you fit this category and you're feeling like I'm not quite there yet, the only metric that matters is the number of offers that you make. I'll say it again. The only metric that matters is the number of offers that you make. And the reason why that is because successful businesses don't know anything different than you. They just simply iterated faster than you. And when businesses fail, it's because they ran out of resources, time, money, effort, emotion, etc., before they finished the iterative cycles enough times to find someone to buy.
Yeah.
That's the first. The second is one theme that I have seen, and I'm a big believer in right now, is what we're kind of calling micro products. And people, and I actually fell victim to this myself a couple of years ago, which is we try to solve big problems in general ways for people when you have to kind of spoon feed the results to earn the confidence over time. So if you feel like you're still struggling, if you're struggling with like, I have to market a lot, or I'm not quite sure if it's resonating, take your process, if you will, or the service that you offer, and take one component of it. So if I asked you the question, what is the one thing you do that can yield the biggest outcome with the least amount of risk, time, money, effort, etc., what is it? And we worked through that one thing for quite a while. And it's like, all I would do, and an example of this would be, I can get someone to reach, 25% of their goal in 5 minutes just by doing this one thing. Awesome. That is your micro product. We're going to name it something, and we're going to go sell it. And you sell it might be, give me your email address, join me for a workshop, $49, $4,000. It doesn't matter. But the point of it is you take a lead, or someone who doesn't know you and doesn't know the problem they ultimately have, and turn them into a customer. A customer is someone who has paid you some amount of money or given you something of value. Yeah. You then earn the right to turn them into a client. And I think so often we try to take someone from being completely unaware of who we are and what we do and try to sell them our high ticket program or sell them into some core product. It's just too big of a leap. People are way too skeptical these days. You have to earn the trust. And the way to do that is to demonstrate or document what it is you do and what it's like to work with you.
Well, I got to tell you, Tim, first off, those answers are incredible. I hope that the listener goes back and listens to those again. But we can be friends again, because everything that you just said was a sales solution. I love it.
There you go. So it's sales in a what I'm going to call kind of authentic way. Yeah. Where, and when I said I fell victim to this, I realized about 2 years ago that I was in this headspace of I have to create marketing content, and I have to create product content, kind of product.
Yep.
And I was like, why do they have to be different?
They don't. They shouldn't, is your point.
They shouldn't. And for me, I was like, that tells me something. That means I'm either not portraying myself with authenticity or, to the public, or my product isn't exactly where I want it to be and I'm making promises I can't deliver. And that was a reconciliation that had to happen. And I think so many people kind of fit in that. There's cognitive dissonance there. There's a disconnect that they're trying to cover up by separating those.
Yeah, I also love in those answers what you gave. It wasn't just here's how to better market, because that could have been construed. You have to, in order to have those things that you just said, you've got to have an amazing product. You have to have the thing where in 25 minutes I 5x their thing, whatever your offer is. Like, it has to be not only just the amazing actual headline or the title, it's got to be something awesome.
But the critical part is that you can do it in small chunks, because it can feel really overwhelming. Like, let me create a perfect product that someone will pay me for 36 months or whatever. It's like,
right.
Can you get someone who can give you money and feel within, and actually the shorter the period, the better. And in a day, a week, a month, feel like, oh, this was the best money I ever spent. I will buy anything from you.
Yeah.
The challenge, Alex has talked about this, and it was something we really instilled at Gym Launch, which was, if the next customer you acquire is the last one that you are allowed to acquire, and they have to bring the rest of your business forward, what is the product that you provide?
Yeah.
It is a standard which is unreasonably high on purpose. Yeah. And we get hung up of like, that doesn't scale. I would never do that. How does it work? Like, create revenue before you add friction. Yeah. Sell something to someone, learn the process, iterate, and it'll get better.
Yeah. One last distinction, because again, you're dropping nuggets on us. I absolutely love it. What you didn't say was go sell something fast, hurry, quick, and never iterate. I sell something so that I can learn, so that I can make it better, so that I can go sell the second guy and the third guy and the fourth gal. But ideally, the product's getting better and better, and they're helping me sell also, is what I'm hearing you say.
It's the virtuous cycle, but you have to start somewhere, and that's why it's like you do it for free for the first 5 people if you have to, because the value isn't the money, the value is the feedback,
the learning,
and that is the offer. The offer is, hey, and just as an aside, for anybody who's thinking of starting something or doing something or creating something new, don't build it, sell it first. Go to your audience and say, hey, Chaz, I'm thinking about doing this thing. It's going to do this. It's going to look kind of like this. And if I had something like that, would that be of interest to you? And if you're like, oh my gosh, if you built that, that would be amazing. Oh, but I wish it would do this other thing. Oh, that's really good feedback. Cool. So if I built it and it looked like this, would that be something you're interested in? Oh yeah, awesome. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, I'll have it ready in 30 days. You'll be my first one.
Yep, exactly. I love it.
Take the money, then build it.
I've got a personal example on this. I don't share very often on these shows, but inside of Gathering the Kings, we went from a singular membership to a couple different levels, one of which we're launching as a wealth builder, kind of a next level up, much larger commitment than what we've ever had before. And I pre-launched it to my current members and was like, hey guys, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? What do you like? Okay, cool. And I'll do it at cost. Like, I was super honest. Here's what it's going to cost me to do this. And I literally won't make a dime on it, but I want you to move over here if this is interesting to you. And we had a tremendous response. And so it's going to be incredible. For that example that you just gave, like, it's going to be awesome. We're going to have a lot of feedback there, but I'm not making money for the first 7, right? Yeah. Your example of 5. It's like, but the next 70 are I'm going to have such an incredible product. It's already going to be amazing. But to your point, it's going to be that much better because of this first group that already are in my circle anyway. They're going to give me straight feedback anyway, but I'm going to get it firsthand, to your point, and we're going to make this program just incredible.
Yeah, and that point that you just made is the critical one, which is you basically, quote unquote, gave away the profit on the first 7 to make sure that you have product market fit. You can fit the audience. So many of us have sat there and tried to sell the first 7. It might take you 10 years to sell the first 7 because it's just not right? So you collapse time by doing that. And I think that is the thing, that is the takeaway that I heard, which is if you're kind of have this like friction point of like nobody's buying, it's like, well, that's because you just have to iterate. You might have to give it away. You might have to mark it down at the beginning, and it doesn't mean it's forever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even another point there, just for the listener's sake, is because I'm sure you've seen this as well. I probably didn't have to do that with the members that I already have their trust. I've already given them immense value. They're already exchanging commerce with me. But I still wanted to do it exactly how you're describing it, because I felt like that would be valuable to not only them, like it would make it that much more valuable, and I would have them that much more on my team and promoting me and becoming a promoter. But it just felt right for me, that first section, to do what you're saying is just goodwill in business. Hey, kings and queens, Chaz Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. Let's talk about a good decision. We've talked about, some cool things that you've done and some that you do with your clients, but what particularly one thing that you can reach back into your history, just a super good decision, and you try to repeat it, and you would have any of your clients repeat it, just super practical?
So a theme in my life in general, but especially my professional life, is I have very distinct chapters that make up the last 20 years. As I said earlier, I grew up in an environment where my dad was in professional services. He worked for a large bank. And so I grew up with this thinking, rightly or wrongly, that there was a way that things are supposed to go.
Sure.
That led me post-college. I studied economics, finance, those types of things. And I ended up at a large bank. And I'm about 6 months in, I could tell that I was not long for this world.
Right.
So the best decision I ever made at that time was to go with my gut and not my head. And I bet on myself. And I think earlier in my life, this is a theme. It remains a theme to today, but earlier in my life especially. So I left a track at a large bank, which would have probably been a very easy, quote unquote, easy path to walk. And I grew up in New York. I went to school in Washington, D.C. That's where I was working at this bank. And I moved to Birmingham, Alabama, of all places, having never been there, to join a guy to start a hedge fund. This is 2004-ish timeframe. And hedge funds at that time were like entrepreneurship today. It was the Wild West. It was where the smartest of the smart guys were going. And I was like, I just want to be there. Maybe it was like, tech, late 90s. Like that was where everybody was. And we started a fund, a partner and I started a fund with about $750,000 committed, which is next to nothing. That's like saying that, I have $5 in sales. Right. And then over the course of 3.5 years, went out and raised over $325 million for that fund in my early 20s. For me, that was the best decision I ever made, because it both validated for me that I could follow this kind of gut feeling that I had, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, I showed that betting on myself, I can figure stuff out.
Yeah.
And those themes have remained consistent throughout. And we actually voluntarily shut that firm down before the 2008 market crash. And then I started something totally new. Same thing, bet on myself again, followed my gut, and that actually led me into fitness and franchise technology, and ultimately to Alex and Leila and that chapter. And now I'm into the third chapter of my professional life. And so, for anyone listening, I would just go. I think those themes, being that self-awareness is important, but also not being afraid to kind of hand the cards back in and get a new hand.
Yeah, I agree with you. What do you think that came from? Like, you just making a gut decision, betting on yourself, like it rolled off your tongue so easily. But what was either the beliefs that you had or the skill sets, and maybe even where did those come from?
Yeah. From a very early age, I can remember, I never had that feeling of like, if I lose it all, that there's like some death punch or something like that that's going to take me out of the game. I was the kid who probably, growing up, I was an okay student. I was definitely not top of my class and all of that kind of stuff. But I always felt like I couldn't identify with my peers, but I could talk to adults significantly better than my friends. And so I felt this confidence in that there wasn't really there wasn't any risk that I could take that was going to, kind of put me down forever. And I think that, and even to this day, and I think other entrepreneurs have said it, like, if I lost it all today, I can make it all back again. It's easy to say kind of 20 years later, but at that time, it was a very calculated risk. And I continue to believe that even if it didn't go right, very few things, even when, and I've had some, fast forward after this sounds all like gravy. 10 years later, I bet it all on a fitness franchise, effectively leveraged, took out a line of credit on my house, the whole 9 yards. And I have been at the bottom of that. Worse, as a father at that point and a husband, laying in bed at night going, nobody knows how screwed we are. Yeah. So this is not all sunshine and rainbows, but I have always had the unwavering belief that it'll work out. And even in those darkest of times, my brain was probably my worst enemy. Yeah. Reality was not.
Yeah, I want to get to that moment here. Before I do, though, I want to ask you about calculated risk, because I've used that phrase, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do, but I don't know if they know what that means truly. Yeah. So in those moments when you're thinking calculated, or even if you were hearing someone, in the audience, they're like, hey, here's my business, and I'm thinking about trusting my gut, betting on myself, all the things that you've said, how do I insert calculated risk?
Yeah. So calculated risks are the ones where you understand what the potential upside is and the downside is tolerable. So let me give you an example. I'm thinking about changing my product because the pricing's not working, the delivery mechanism isn't working, something like that. And you could say, I need to almost cannibalize my existing business for something that might be better. So you go, okay, I have a high ticket program right now. It's okay, but it's not work. I will literally say, this is exactly what I'm doing today. So I can speak from firsthand. I run a high ticket coaching and consulting business. My belief is for me to generate the types of emotional financial returns and impact, I need to go low ticket to some extent. I need to widen my audience because a 6-7 figure type kind of one-on-one offering is not going to be acceptable for everyone, but I want to be able to have an impact. So I am rolling out a low ticket, call it hybrid one-on-one program. And I will tell you right now, I'm probably going to have to move away from just about every one of my high ticket leads who are considering joining that program, who are on a wait list to join that program. I'm basically going to have to shut them down and probably move them to this low ticket program, which is at a 95% discount to what they're in line to sign up for. It's the right thing to do. And I believe that my impact will be bigger. So calculated risk is I could take money today, or I could end up with a business that could be, 3, 4, 5, 10 times as large and actually much more in line with what I'm trying to do ultimately. Sure.
Yeah.
It's not going to take me out of the game. Is it the right decision? It's the one I feel best about. Yeah. Will it shut my business down? No. But I also know what the outcome is. And I think the difference between this decision as I make it today versus 20 years ago, I think in probability today, not possibility. I'll say that again. It's probabilities versus possibilities. How often have we said like, well, if everything goes right, I can have a $10 billion, $1 billion exit. Like, but what is probable?
Yeah.
Is it possible for me to sell more high ticket programs and make it all work? It's possible. I just don't like the idea of it because I just do believe that this kind of collaborative element is super important to me.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have 100 people that I can influence and impact than, a single digit number.
Yeah.
So hopefully that resonates.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. I think that it actually shows that you're choosing what you called the right thing, but really more of just what your calling is versus money. And I think you've had the ability to have some success and be able to go, you know what? Yeah, sure. Maybe I could do this and make good money, but my heart tells me to do this, or my gut, maybe more to what you're describing first. So I appreciate that. Let's go back to that moment where you're laying in bed. You're the only person in your world that knows ish is about to hit the fan. Your wife doesn't know probably at this point. Your team doesn't know. Tell us why you were in this position. Tell us what you did after that.
Yeah, I'll give you the context. So after this investment company that I ran, my wife and I, who are Division I athletes, wanted to get back to kind of the health and fitness industry in general. And so we got into the gym business. And we got in with an early kind of a nascent franchise system. In my now mid to late 20s, I was driven by ego more than anything else. And so I got into a system where I was really good. And we built one location, and we built a second and a third. And it was 100% driven by, and I probably lied to myself at the time. It was, I want to have a bigger impact. At the time it was, I want to be the king on the hill. And the biggest guy in the system had 5 units of this chain. So I was like, well, heck, if I can run 1, then I can run 2, and I can run 3. I got to 8. And it was so evident, if I was honest with myself, that I was basically like a runaway train, that I just kept adding more, thinking I could figure it out. And that betting on myself kind of concept from a few minutes ago, this is where it can go wrong. I was just like, because I was not taking calculated risk, I was taking just sheer
ego,
possibility risk. And so that led me to being like, well, I'm going to self-finance this and the whole 9 yards. So I took out a line of credit to build a location, and then it wasn't working as well. And I was like, well, I just need more time to figure it out. So put more money in. And it was 1:37 in the morning. It was a Wednesday. And I was wide awake, sweating, staring up at the ceiling fan over our bed, going, holy, you know what? If only everyone knew how screwed we are. The next day, 5 of my main people quit. And it was professionally and personally the lowest. You kind of hear those things where people don't quit companies, they quit managers. The Band-Aid was completely ripped off in like a 24-hour period. And it was like, you've lost it. Like literally lost it all, lost it mentally, lost the team. And it took me to a point where personally I had to basically rebuild who I was, because I was motivated by the wrong things and showing up in the wrong way and things like that. And we ended up selling that house, closed the locations, made it work. And that was kind of I've always had from a very early time back in my investing days, there was this phrase that said, sometimes you need to retreat to a position of strength. And this was we get taught this, delivered the same lessons until we learn them. I was delivered the lesson of like, you need to retreat to a position of strength because you're out of control. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. In the moment, it was the worst thing that ever happened. But I think everyone has gone through some version of, whether it be personal, financial, psychological, mental, whatever it is, needing to learn the lessons that will ultimately pay the dividends to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And incredible moments, really. I have almost not the exact story, but a very similar, and maybe one day we'll be able to kind of go back and forth on the notes on those moments for us. But for the guy or gal listening right now who's in that moment, what do you have for them? Because you didn't glaze over how it all unwound, but what was the mindset to be able to unwind it and go to that safe place?
Yeah. So 2 things. One is, it's always darkest before the dawn, which sounds kind of flip, but it's never as bad as you probably believe it to be. If you got into the position, chances are you can negotiate your way out. And that's honestly is what I believed at that time. So that's the first. The second is, I will say, transformations don't happen in isolation. When things get rough, most people, including entrepreneurs, will go inward. Mm-hmm. Fight that dynamic, that feeling of I need to hunker down and isolate. It is the exact opposite thing that you need to do. Swallow your pride, call someone that you know who can help give you objectivity in the moment and say, here's where I am.
Yep.
I have this, it's most of us in life are pursuing, most people say retirement and financial security and all these things. What we really want is options. And in these moments, what happens is we feel we have no options.
That's right.
So you need someone with objectivity to remind you and help tease out that you do have options, because our options are only limited by our imagination. And in this moment, your imagination will only be limited by your confidence. So you need someone to lend you confidence in that moment, because I guarantee you're better than you think you are. You just need someone to remind you.
Wow. The borrowed self-confidence, so that you can have an imagination, so that you can figure out options, or borrow those as well, is what I'm hearing you just say in that moment.
Absolutely.
Super powerful. I think that the listener hopefully can not only resonate being in that place, but hopefully they've been that other person for another person. I think we all know what both sides of that conversation sounds like. And you're right, it is powerful. What do you think for you, like that same moment, the same mindset, the same frame, but like your wife and kids and health was obviously still a big deal for you, and faith and lifestyle and all these like other things that are in our life. What did it look like for those? Was there an impact on those? Did you have to be honest with those as well? Like, what did it look like?
So I, at the time, had 3 kids. My youngest was very young, and they were kind of under the age of like 4 or 5. So at that point, it wasn't as big of an impact for them. It was just business as usual.
Yeah.
My health went to 0. Psychologically, I just showed up frustrated and things like that. But I definitely felt wrongly that I needed to protect my wife at the time from reality. And my wife's tough. She's one of those, like, just tell me where we are. Like, I know who I married. I know that I was going on a roller coaster. Just don't tell me, that
we're going up.
The sun is shining. Yeah, exactly. So, and that was one of, I actually leaned on somebody else, and they said, like, listen, you just lay it all out. And this is actually a practice, and we can talk about it if helpful. The idea that I had to get everything out of my head and onto paper to be able to look at the reality objectively, because otherwise it's just all this stuff swirly in your head, and you get stuck in these kind of infinite loops, right? So that's what I did. They were like, write it all down. The good, the bad, the ugly, what you think, the factors, the money, just lay it all out. And then he gave me a framework to walk through. And at the end of that, that's when I was like, so honey, I just need to tell you reality. This is where we are. And here's how I think I'm going to fix it. Mm-hmm. And this is what I need. And, things like that. And it worked out. It worked out from the standpoint of like, how it solved the isolation.
Right. Yep.
And that's really what I needed, because I felt like I was fighting this alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so powerful. And that isolation, even in the marriage, can be, the opposite of that is the mastermind principle that you have with your wife.
Yeah.
It can go upwards or downwards, or negative or positive. And so I appreciate you sharing that. It's super vulnerable. Somebody out there is in that spot right now. I know it. And so I too have been in that place. We've shut down franchises. Again, very similar story. And, I have a tough wife too. And there's some things where and she even knows too. She actually said the other day, she asked me a question. And I was like, oh, like no big deal, or whatever my response was. And it really wasn't. And she asked, she's like, are you kinging me right now?
Oh, very nice.
And so to your point, like, not only can you have a wife that can handle it, but then on top of that, she knows that I intentionally still keep things from her, not because I don't want to share, but because I don't want her to have to carry the weight, even if it's not that big of a deal. Why give it to her? But there are some times in these moments here that Tim has given to us, the power that she can actually give to the situation, even just by listening and helping you kind of process reality, along with the other gentleman that you shared with. It is the ticket. It's the power. It's the literal Napoleon Hill mastermind principle power that helps us obtain the actual thing that we want.
Yep, spot on. Yep.
Okay, well, that kind of leads me to my next question around family. So that was kind of in the dark moments, but I'm a big fan of what I call the exceptional life, and that's winning in all areas, which includes family and lifestyle and fitness and health and emotionally, physically, and all that stuff. And so, my faith. And so it's like, how are you obsessing in all of those areas while building even a new business, that you're transitioning your product. You already told us that you're like literally in transition right now. How are you obsessing over all of these things at once?
So I'll give you kind of the Crib Notes version. I used the word Cliff Notes before, right after talking about Rolodexes with a high school class that I was mentoring. And they're like, it's the contact list in your phone. That's what a Rolodex is. They just had them on cards and stuff. Yeah. So for me, I am been married for almost 20 years. I have 3 kids that are now 10 to 14 years old. And I have purposely constructed my life around being present with them. And that's really important because I've turned down just tons of opportunities, which would require me to travel a ton and be at the whim of others and things like that. And I've chosen not to do those intentionally. And then about 6-7 months ago, I have a mentor that I work with today, and he has the type of lifestyle I call it's called this like the leverage life that he was kind of forced upon him. But I asked him kind of what were the lessons and what was the best thing he did to kind of work through this. I have the life I don't want to the life that I do. And he said, you need to write an intention document. And I said, well, what the heck does that mean? And he goes, this is where I came from. This is where I am. This is where I'm going. This is what I will accept. And this is what I will not accept going forward. And I said, okay, I can do that. So I did it. He goes, I only told you half of the instruction. Ooh. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, now I want you to pull up your Facebook and I want you to publish it to the world. Ooh. So I did. So I have you can find it on my Facebook profile from about 6 months ago. And this is my intention. This is the life I am going to build. This is how I'm going to do it. And every one of the clients that I have now and every prospect is required to read that document. I give them the link and say, I just want you to know that this is how I work. And it's important because it says in there that I am not going to answer your phone calls at 11 o'clock at night. I am going to value coaching my kids' soccer team over the fire that you might have. And you need to know that. And here are the terms. And if it's not okay with you, I'm okay with that. But it was really important for me, if I'm like really being honest about it, it forced me to be honest with myself about what it is I'm trying to build. It is my North Star. So now when I go to my wife and say, I have this crazy idea, or I was literally right before this call, I have an opportunity that's very close to violating some of the things that are on there. Like it's more time, it's less flexibility. And I am turning it down. It's the way that I have to stick to seeing the world, and it evolves over time and things like that. It's not just a one and done.
Sure.
But it's my public call and manifesto of like, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. And I think everyone should have that. And it is a way to unite those parts of your life so that everything else doesn't get crowded out, that you might, that's that whole like regret thing later in life, right? It's because the things that you ultimately value later on get crowded out by the things that are short term. Yeah, depends on your time.
Yeah, I the picture of where you've come from, where you are, and where you're going. I think again, going back to some of the language that Alex has used, is just making decisions over greater timelines or time horizons. Yeah, and that's what I see you saying. You're saying no to this client because that's a short-term decision, and you're saying yes to coaching your kids or whatever else is on that manifesto.
Yeah, I think it's. So Alex talks about timelines because I agree with this, that we try to go for the short-term win when we miss the big context and things like that. But actually, I keep this book next to me. If you have not read Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, this is critical to the process. And I recommend anyone. Dan has been a mentor of Alex's and others in my circle. Phenomenal book. And it's really around how do you kind of structure the life that you want, because a lot of people try to get there and do it in different ways, and this is the best way that I found to be able to execute against that. That
mentor that gave you that, if he were, I mean, I'm sure you probably shared all that, but what would he say, or what grade would he give you currently of what you're doing now versus what that manifesto says you're going to do?
Great question. Right now, I started at an F, and I've probably worked my way up to probably somewhere in the C+ to B- range right now. I did share I said, this is going to take me a year to probably get to. And he said, try to do it in 6 months. But I recognized and I went through kind of here are the reasons why. It's, I had client commitments and things like that. And he's like, and those would be ones that would be significantly impactful. And he's like, just know that every day that you don't do this, you're living out of alignment, basically. And I'm like, wow. So that's the hook. And he reminds me of it on a weekly basis right now. So I'm definitely trying to kind of transition into, and this group that I mentioned a second, a couple minutes ago, is a reflection of that. It allows me to do more leverage work. It allows me to have a bigger impact, and give a kind of a greater ease to how the business is going to work.
Yeah, love it.
Yep.
I've got one last question here for you, Tim. If you've kind of identified these different chapters, and so I'm going to let you pick the younger Tim that you get to speak to, which chapter maybe, but you roll back the clock and you talk to the younger Tim and you whisper in his ear. What do you tell him?
I would say to be clear on your standards and never lower them for anyone. Anytime that I have gotten myself in trouble or created, talk about vibration, I'm a big believer in kind of just the energy idea. Like the things that take away my energy are times when I went against my greater judgment.
Yeah.
And I think I would just, that person that's out there, that business that's out there, that life that's out there is possible. Don't settle would be what I would say. And that professionally, that's like, well, I need to take this job because of this thing that I have in my head doesn't exist. Well, I would almost guarantee you it does, or you can go and build it. The question isn't, is it possible? The question is, what do you need? What needs to be true for that to be possible? And that's the question to ask.
That's always a different question.
Yeah. It's the question behind the question.
That's right. That's right. Tim, you have an incredible mind, an incredible history. How can the listeners find you? They find themselves between this $500 and $3 million mark. They need a number two, someone to strategically guide them through scaling their business. How can they find you?
Yeah, so go to, timcalise.com is the website, timcalise.com, and then Instagram and Facebook. But if you go to Instagram and DM me Kings, I have a framework that I call the Profit Maximizer, and it's the idea of how do you take kind of what you have today and potentially move you closer to where you want to go. I'm going to give that to you as a listener, as a thank you for listening to the show. And then this community, the co-creator community, as I mentioned a second ago, is actually going to be launching here very shortly, and so it'll probably be live when you're listening to this. So DM me Kings, and I'll get you some information about that as well. But the gift is mine for you to listen for as a thank you for listening to the show.
I love it, Tim. You're well thought out. You're intentional, not only just in your life, but even just how you shared with us here today, all the way down to how people can connect with you. I just really admire what you've done. I thank you for being here. Blessings to you and your entire cohort, your family, all the businesses that you're touching. Thank you for being here, sir.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. Great to chat. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.